Good evening to our audience of Golf Bangladesh. Today we have got a. Sir, can you hear me by the way? Welcome you, sir.
Thank you,
Can
Chow.
you hear me?
I can
Okay.
hear you.
So yeah, thank you very much. So to start, I have checked my microphone. So all set. We are set to discuss some of the very important issue of rules of golf, especially the rules clarifications. Some of them, major importance one. Before I start, I must tell you, I must remember one of our colleagues from the PGA who just expired today, Group Captain Lukman. I think you can see the picture of him at the top right corner. Group Captain Lukman was an executive member of running EC committee of BPGA, Bangladesh Professional Golfers Association. He was former joint secretary who worked and assisted BPGA to grow and to come to this stage. So we remember Mr. Group Captain Lukman for his early demise. He was suffering from cancer. Many of you may have known. And also, he today had a stroke, I could learn, and suffering from maybe from corona too. So we all pray for him before we start. Sir, now I introduce my guest today. He is none other than the master of rules of Indian golf, Mr. Sampath Chari. He is connecting us from India, all the way from India. So he's very busy today. He'll be leaving for Bangalore for yet another PGTI tournament just tonight. So before that, we'll take around 20 minutes from him to know the latest changes of rules of golf 2019, especially the clarification. There are many clarifications, but the important one we'll discuss today. Sir, to start, I want to know about your little bit of PGTI and also about you. You are standing for 804 PGTI tournament. Does it include all the Asian tours and masters or other tournaments, or it is only PGTI tournaments? Number is you are standing this week 805.
Chow, first and foremost, thank you for having me on your show. And my condolences to the family of the gentleman, who lost his life. Extremely sad to hear that. May God give, all the courage and strength to the family to overcome this big loss. Having said that, Chow, the score is now 815. It's not 805. Correction, 815.
Okay,
And this includes
sorry.
all professional events that I have done. Only professional events that I have done. I'm an old man now, Chow. I've done 23 years of professional golf. So, it's been a long time. 23 years is one hell of a long time. That's how the numbers
Uh,
have gone.
I,
And I,
I don't think anybody else is there in Asia who stood for 815. Not even I think GT.
I just finished 815 last week in Kashmir.
So nobody else is there in Asia, I'm sure.
No, I'm sure that more and more will come up, but it's just a number. And it's good. It's good that I'm still interested and I'm able to contribute to the tour, and the people and the players basically are quite happy with what I do. That is the most important thing. Otherwise, lasting for 22 years is a very difficult thing if the players are very unhappy with you. So the first and
Right, sir.
foremost thing is I firmly believe in what the rule book says, that you play the ball as it lies, play the course
Yeah,
as you find it. And if you can't do anything, then do what is fair. And to do what is fair, you must know the rules. So I firmly
right,
believe in that, and I try and keep on improving. Mistakes happen, but you learn.
right, right. Okay, sir. So to start, sir, I want to listen from you some of the very latest changes from R&A, which were not included in the changes 2019. After that, time to time, they have issued some clarifications. So, what are those major clarifications? If you could cover today, a few of those.
Yeah, Chow, what has happened is, over once the new rules came into play after 2019, and both the RNA and the USGA put them into focus on the bigger tours, and people started finding out, how difficult it was to do it or how easy it was to do it. People found out that there were a lot of mistakes happening. Mistakes happening in the sense that, things like a ball moved. Did it really move? What caused it to move? Small issues started coming up. And for example, one major issue that came up was, regarding the breaking of a club on the course while playing a shot. Now, the earlier rule said that if you're playing a club and break it in the process of making a shot, you must not change the club at all. Now, I don't think it was very fair. And therefore, the ruling body said that let's introduce a new clarification. And they brought in a new clarification, which is under the interpretation of the local rule G9, which now says that if you have broken a club in the process of making a stroke, in the process of, in the process of damaging a club in the process of making a stroke, you are allowed to replace a club, which was the earlier rule. So things like this, almost every rule has a change now. And I've seen that, almost about 25 odd changes have taken place. There are some changes in the definition. There are a total of 74 odd definitions in the rules book. 25 of them have an additional interpretation, and out of which there are about 42 in total. And there are 3 separate clarifications on what the club length is, what a flag stick is, what the relief area is. So they're trying to make things clearer and clearer for all the people all over the world to follow this exciting game. Hopefully, when the next book comes, all these will be made into proper rules, from the clarification to the rules, and then we go on from there. Now, talking about today, we have 2 major explanations, clarifications of what used to be there. Now, for example, I'll just read this particular rule of 10.2b4. 10.2b4 spoke about the alignment of what a player can do or what a caddy can do to align the player. And 10.2b4 is now being modified, which means there are a lot of changes which have taken place with the changes. We were very clear that, on the fairway or anywhere other than on the putting green, a player could align his player to make a shot, which means the caddy could stand behind the player would take his stance, and then the caddy would would step away, and then the player would play a shot. This process was extended further to the putting green, and there was no penalty at all if the player was aligned by the caddy anywhere, either on the putting green or on the fairway.
Or in the fairway.
Yeah. And then if the player moved away after having aligned himself, the caddy moves away, the player moves away.
After taking stance.
Then, yes, after taking a stance, the caddy moves away. The player also moves away and then realigns the whole process on his own. Then there would be no penalty at all. Yeah. So the foremost thing was that the meaning of begins taking a stance for the stroke, and the stroke that is actually made came into effect with the clarification rules introduced some time back. This is there in Rule 10.2b4. Now, Rule 10.2b4, what is the rule? The rule does not allow a player to have his or caddy deliberately standing on or close to a line of the extension of play behind the ball for any reason. That's what the rule said, So when the player begins taking a stance for the stroke, the reference to the stroke here means that the stroke that is actually being made. If you're not making the stroke, nothing happens. But if you align yourself and you make a stroke, that's when whether there's a penalty applicable or not applicable comes into play. If you're just going to take your stance, and you have a lot of people have this habit of taking a stance, stepping away, and then getting back into position, and then making a stroke with the caddy standing behind him, that's when the penalty will be applicable. Otherwise, the penalty will not be applicable. That is the first thing. So if a player backs away...
Here there was a confusion. Now it extends up to taking the stroke, not up to taking stance. Is it?
That is right. Not just taking a stance, the stroke being actually made. When the shot is actually played, that's when the penalty steps in, whether there is a penalty or not a penalty. Before that, there's no problem at all, because the caddy can help a player.
Even if he has taken stance but not taken stroke, he has taken stance but not taken stroke, just aligned, but not taken any stroke. So he has not taken big backswing.
Yeah, as long as he steps away and starts the whole process again. Now, let us imagine a situation wherein the caddy has stood behind the ball for the player to make a stroke. Okay? Now, the player has told the caddy, move left, move right, or keep your foot this way, keep your club that way, whatever it is. And then the caddy steps away. The player has not stepped away.
Okay. Then it is not mistake.
Then there could be a problem.
Yeah.
If the caddy is still there around to watch what he's doing, then there could be a problem. As long as both step away, and then the caddy, then the player starts his own alignment once again, doing exactly what he's supposed to do. In that case, there would be no penalty. Okay. Therefore, if a player takes a stance when a caddy is deliberately standing behind and then makes a stroke, that's when the penalty is applicable. But again, in this process, there are a couple of situations wherein a player could possibly get away without a penalty, because the word deliberate is very, very important out here. Deliberately standing behind when the player is taking a stance is of importance out here. Sometimes, by
Intention.
mistake, for example, when a player is in a bunker and he's raking the bunker, he might be right behind the player who's taking the stance. In such cases, there would not be a penalty, and the player, if the player even plays the shot, there would not be a penalty at all. So what they have explained now as to what is the meaning of taking a stance.
Taking
When the
stance, yes.
Yeah, so when the player sets his foot down, puts his foot down, in any foot, 1 foot down, in position to take a stance, that means he's begun taking his stance for the
Stance.
stroke that is to be made. Right?
Okay.
So that is why,
Right.
earlier, in the earlier book, in the earlier rules clarification 10.2v4.2, very clearly
Yeah.
said that if the player is standing behind and the player takes a stance, there would be a penalty.
Okay.
This clarification has now come that it is a penalty only if the stroke is actually made.
Yeah.
Right? So
Yeah.
that is very, very clear now. And there are some examples of, a caddy not deliberately standing behind when the player is taking a stance for the stroke. Uh, One of that is the extension of line of play for any reason the player is beginning to take a stance for a stroke. I've got some paper out here which I'll tell you what the rule out here is. Now, when does the penalty not apply? Like I said some time back, the use of the term deliberately is of great importance, and this can happen in various ways. Now, I've just said the caddy is raking a bunker, and he's taking some similar action on the course and is not aware that his player is actually
Yeah.
taking a stance for the stroke. In such a case, there would be no penalty, and the player would be absolved from such a penalty to play his stroke. Now, the caddy is standing on extension of the line of play behind the ball, but when the player moves into taking a stance, the caddy is facing away from the player and he's looking at somebody else. In that case, again, there would be no penalty, and the player can play a shot. Or the caddy is engaged in some other task, such as obtaining a yardage, and is aware that the player is, taking a stance, in which case, again, there would not be a penalty. So anything which is not deliberate would not be a
Yeah.
penalty. Okay?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
there would be a penalty, of course, if it is done deliberately. And, there are common acts that the caddy normally does for the player when the player is taking a stance, such as, there are examples given in that particular clarification wherein, a player's club, whether it will hit a tree or not, the caddy is standing behind. Whether the player's interference from a cart path or holding an umbrella over the player's head while he's taking a stance,
Mm.
these are not something which is unusual, and these are all deliberate actions, and there will be a penalty if a player does these things to try and protect the player. Therefore, the word deliberate is actually just standing, normal actions such as what I just explained to you now. These could be forgiven, but otherwise you will have an issue about taking a stance. So it's very, very important that in aligning the player, you must make sure that you step away. And if the caddy has aligned you, you step away from the ball and realign yourself. Because ultimately, what the ruling body are trying to tell you is that golf is a game of skill. So the player must use his own intelligence to find out exactly what he's doing, how to aim, and how to play his shot. Yeah,
Okay, sir. So, few other important ones, sir.
right. Now there's another very, very important one. This requires a little bit of highly, it's a little uh, tedious explanation in the sense that this belongs to the green reading materials, and
Mm-hmm.
green reading materials is quite in depth. This talks about putting green maps and books and how you can do what you can do. But the basic purpose of the interpretation of the green reading material is that this comes under rule 4.3, and 4.3 limits the use of equipment and devices that might help a player in his play. It's based basically on the principles that golf is a challenging game in which success totally depends on the judgment, skills, and abilities of the player. This interpretation of Rule 4.3 limits the size and scale of detailed putting green maps and any similar electronic device, digital materials that a player may use during a round to help with reading his line of play on the putting green. A player's ability to read a green remains an essential part of the skill of putting. Therefore, the limitations apply only to any stroke a player makes from the putting green, and to a stroke made with a putter from anywhere off the putting green with the intention that the ball will come to stop on the putting green. And if one goes into the USGA or the RNA green reading material, frequently asked questions, a lot of doubts can be clarified on this particular matter, and it's worth going through. But just for the basic initial start off to the topic is that the putting green maps. Everybody carries a yardage book these days. I'm sorry. Am I visible now? Hello. Hello.
You are clear. You are clear.
Okay, I'm clear. So the putting green map is something which is which all the highly skilled players use to design to show how the green slopes and where the contours come in and where to play the ball and how to play the ball. So these are all covered under the putting green maps. And so what the ruling bodies have done is to try and limit the size and scale of these putting green books and maps. Now, any book or any paper, I've got this here. It must not be more than, well, it must be limited to a scale of 3/8 inch to 5 yards, which is about 1:480, or smaller, the scale limit. Any image of a putting green must be limited to this scale. Okay. Any book or other paper containing a map or image of a putting green must not be larger than 4¼ inches by 7 inches. This is a normal yardage book that
Yardage book, length of yardage book.
correct, the length and depth of the yardage book, and the size of squares, the grids that come into each yardage book, which shows you what the 5/8 of an inch should be. These are to be used only and cannot be used anything else. Now, this also extends to any book in the form of an electronic digital form. These days you have mobile phones, you have so many other instruments where people use the size that I've just mentioned. In electronic form or digital form, any image of a putting green must meet the above scale that I just spoke. And even when an electronic or digital putting green map meets the above limits, the player is still in breach if the player uses any device in a manner which is not consistent with the purpose of these limits. So the increasing the size of the greens presentation beyond the scale of size limits is very important. I have not seen. Hello?
Go ahead. Sir, go ahead.
I have not seen anybody being penalized for this, because the major bodies make sure that the books are meant in proper fashion. They all meet the scale limits. But we, in fact, even in our PGTI, we don't have the yardage books of the type that is being produced on the Asian Tour. So what people use is big notebooks, or a big scale of paper, which does not meet these size requirements, and then we tell them that this is not what they're supposed to do. So it's very important that the scale limits are met as per the green reading materials. This could perhaps call for another in-depth session wherein you could try and get a yardage book and explain to us to what is what. We'll try and do this in another session where I can get a yardage book and show you that this can be done, this cannot be done.
Okay, sir. Sir, as time is getting very close, can you give another 10 minutes?
Yeah, go ahead.
It is now 8 p.m. in your time.
Yeah.
So if you have another 10 minutes, then we can discuss 2 or 3 clarification, like rules clarification has got some definitions or clarification on backstop, and also what is that hail about, repairing the damage of hail on the green. And
hail
also
hail is something which is natural. It's caused by a heavy storm or something, so that damage cannot be repaired. It's a natural process. So you got to play the ball as it lies. So in fact, Rule 13.1C2 tells you that damage on the putting green. Now, of course, if the damage is so bad, then they say that the damage on the putting green can be repaired. This has come in as a rules clarification. This was clarified in 2018. Otherwise, normal wear and tear on the green is not supposed to be repaired. But in case of a heavy hail, which is covered in this interpretation, you can have this.
So now, sir, for the case of all kind of damage, including footprint, or it is a spike mark, or by anything damage, like
Mostly,
explain to
yeah.
say.
90%,
Yeah,
yes.
mostly.
Yeah.
Yes, you can
But
repair now.
only things like, your coring marks and coring holes and aerated holes, for only those cannot be repaired because there are too many of them. But by and large, yes, it helps a lot in the
All
process
whole
of repairing
plug,
your spike marks and your foot
pitch
marks.
mark, spike mark.
Yes,
Yeah.
all these can be repaired. Then we also have this a very important one is, uh, what's the right word for that? The right word for that is,
What for green? For green, sir?
no, I'm talking about on the putting green about, the ball acting as a backstop for another ball.
Yeah, backstop. Yes,
Yeah.
backstop.
So the important word is backstop. And here, of course, to prevent unfortunately, I wish there was a penalty applied in such a case. There is no penalty applied. But if your ball were to act as a backstop for me when I am playing, they say as a question of sportsmanship or something, it should not be allowed. But I wish there was a penalty. There is no penalty. I hope you know that.
There
There
is a
is no
penalty
penalty,
for
but
backstop, for
yeah,
deliberate backstop by club, or backstop by ball, or by
that is
boot,
a
or
different matter
shoe.
altogether. Here it's a question of talking about
Okay.
backstop of one ball helping another ball. So when you're
Okay.
helping something, that process should be stopped. You should not help a ball in play to be stopped. Therefore, it's a wise
Okay.
thing for a player to go and pick up his ball, mark it, or tell the other player before he plays the shot that, listen, I'm going to mark my ball, so please don't play a shot. I have seen players telling the guy, let the ball be there, and the fellow competitor just leaves his ball there. At times it does strike. It definitely, for
Okay.
sure that it does help.
Okay.
And
Sir,
it's a good thing to go and tell the player that it's not a breach of the rule, but it's something which is not in good spirit.
not expected. Yeah,
Yeah,
sir.
not expected. Absolutely.
Before we go, because time is very short, some of my audience is putting on some remarks. I read those, few of those, and some opinions, some remarks, comments, some comments. And before that, before I forget, on two topics, some of the audience, like, once ball is on a good or ground under repair, which is not marked by the committee, ground under repair not marked by committee, if a referee give instant decision, this is under, a referee can give a instant decision, as you said earlier. I mean, it is as per rule. But what happens if any referee gives a decision on not marked GUR? It should be immediately marked. Am I correct, sir?
You're absolutely right. So that way you have fair treatment. Everybody is treated in the same equity. So therefore, at times it's not possible for everybody to mark a golf course, although one should. At times some things get looked over. And then if a referee is convinced that that particular area should have been marked as ground repair, he would probably give relief to the player, given relief in this particular area, which was not marked as ground under repair, but I've given it as relief because, it could be a badly damaged area, or there could be a heavy vehicle rut, or there could be anything in it, And you must mark that area and tell them that if you come across such an incident, you may do the same thing. A referee has the right to do this, but preferably it should be avoided.
The
So
committee should
much
have
more
marked, should
steps should
mark.
be done. Yes.
Sir, now some comments that Salman Ahsan, he is writing, rules of golf, why it is so big. I see.
Why?
Another one, Delaro said, why rules of golf is so big. How Indian golf is shaped now, why it is standing, how PGTA is moving. Another guy, I'm reading two or three comments together so that you can answer once. And then Robin Khan, how many rules now? Why golf is not global? Okay, there are different type of questions. Too fast. Why it is big, and how many rules? Rule number is 24. I know. Why it is big, sir? Why not it is some other not like other games?
Just to answer that question, before 2018, there were 34 rules.
Yeah.
After 2018 and the new book, now there are only 24 rules, right? So we've cut off 10 rules. We've included the rules from movable obstructions into GUR, and we brought the same thing, same ambit of similar situations into a particular rule, and we brought them into this. The idea, is, I think it is the only game which is played over 140 or 200 acres of land. So that's why, you talk about any other game, you talk about basketball, an indoor game, or a cricket. It's
Football.
all in a small, limited space of 100 yards, 100 square yards, whatever it is. So golf is so huge, and you want everybody to play in the same spirit, in the same method. Otherwise, it'll be hell. Everybody would be playing what he thinks is correct, and nothing would be correct. So the essence of rules is very, very important. And I'm sure that, the ruling bodies are trying to condense the whole
Make it
thing into
simpler.
simpler and smaller ways. It's a question of understanding how to apply the rules. And since golf is played in so many different countries all over the world and is becoming a very, very popular game, it's a matter of time, but it will take place, I'm sure, in future when rules become a little lesser and lesser. And
Sir, two
the
more
second
questions.
question of how PGTI is
Is
doing.
why it is not global? Why it is not golf is not global? Why golf is not mass game? How can golf be taken to root? So yeah, you are an expert of golf, working for golf for your lifetime.
Could
So
you
why
could you just please
golf?
could you please repeat those questions?
Yeah, why golf is not global?
Golf is global. How do you say golf is not global? Golf is
I
global.
mean, he
Golf is
again,
played all
again,
over the
some
world.
again somebody has written. He meant golf is not mass game. I mean, general mass game. It is only played in some part of the
Yes,
world, some part of the
yes. Golf
country.
is not a mass game. Golf is not a mass game for the simple reason. Yes, I agree that golf is not a mass game for the simple reason that things are still more expensive. You've got become a member of a club. You've got to buy balls. You've got to pay caddies. So everything adds one after the other. You
So, but here, can you hear
yes,
me? At times you are distorted. Can you hear me?
getting land to play golf in 200 acres. It's not easy to make. Anybody can work. It demands space. It demands equipment. It demands teachers to teach. Yeah,
At times you are
I can
distorted.
hear
Can
you.
you hear me properly, sir? Okay. So here, what I understand the essence of this question, some of the
Hello,
questions, maybe 2%. Can you hear me now?
can you hear?
Yeah, I can hear
Hello,
you.
I can hear
I can
you.
hear you. Okay, it's okay then, sir. I think your net is disturbing.
Yeah, I got back.
Okay, so I have to put your other one. Okay, so now can you hear me?
Yeah,
Okay, so the sense of this, essence of these 2 or 3 questions, what I understood, he wanted to mean why it is not mass game like football or cricket. Yeah, you answered because it's a costly game. But can we not change these narratives of golf, like some of the experts started saying from R&A? Once we practice golf, we play practice golf, not tournament like you. You people are playing, conducting professional golf. We are talking about professional golf. But why not amateur golf can be played on 1 or 2 hole with one driving range like cricket? Cricket is not always played in cricket stadium. They are played in gullies. They are played in roads. They are played in tracks. So why not golf also can be played in casual limit?
even to play golf in casual limits, Chow, you'll understand that you need space. And even to open up public driving ranges, just public driving ranges where people can just walk in, take a club, hit balls, and go. That would be a big, big boost for everybody. So it's for the states, it's for the government to step in and try and encourage us to play this. Cricket, hockey, football, soccer, anything, it requires a very, very small amount of space, where you don't worry much. You just need a ball, you keep running around and playing. Here, what happens is that cricket, golf, apart from it being a little expensive, even now, even for people like us, it's a game which can cause a lot of harm. If you hit somebody with a ball, it's serious damage. Therefore, it calls for big space. So the first step I would say is that government should step in. don't give us 100 acres of land, but give us an acre of land, wherein boys, youngsters,
Right,
schools,
yeah,
they can go and hit balls in the driving range. Once you hit a
right,
ball,
yeah,
and once you feel that you can hit a ball and you're hitting
right,
it well, the interest
uh,
steps in. And this interest
right,
comes
right,
in only at a very early age, when it is
right,
introduced in school. Because the average guy who watches somebody playing golf even now, he thinks that it's an old man's game. It's not meant for him. He prefers playing cricket or a faster game. So unless he's exposed to playing shots, unless he's exposed to hitting a ball with a golf club, only then will he understand the importance of how good a game it is. We all say, I wish we had started earlier.
Okay, sir. Sir, somebody is asking, can you tell us something, the major changes of rules 2019? So with this will end, if you clarify some of the major changes.
Oh, there are so many major changes here. For example, the most important thing which I like is, putting with the
They
flag
can watch
stick on the
my
putting
video
green.
on YouTube.
Sorry?
Right, right in this channel, I posted before few days some of the major changes. You can watch also that video besides sir's answer. Okay, sir, go ahead.
Yeah, sure will. But see, just see the example of keeping in things. The most important thing which I like was two things. First thing is putting with the flag stick on and the putting green. It saves a lot of time. And second thing is looking for a lost ball. The time is
Yeah,
reduced from 5 minutes to 3 minutes.
three
There are
minutes.
so many other changes which have come. The
They
regard
are
to health
always
of the club.
there, sir. There always I am a defaulter. You caught me for thrice in not keeping the time properly.
That's how it is now. But I'm sorry, I will give you more time the next time.
It is very tough to keep the timing of 5 minutes. Now it has become easy to keep 3 minutes. Yeah,
Yeah. But I
go
do
ahead,
hope
sir.
I'll be able to fulfill your task of giving you some more time in the next assignment that we talk on.
Okay, sir. So go
Okay?
ahead. Another change you talk. Yeah. Okay, so other changes, major changes, sir.
Yeah.
Few of the major
So
changes.
why don't we just discuss this in the next meeting that we have?
Okay, okay, sir.
Yeah.
It is already 45 minutes, sir. So
Yeah.
let's finish here. Thank you very much, sir. In next show, after you conduct this tournament, next week we'll come again.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you so much. And nice
Thank you very
talking to
much,
you.
sir.
Say
Sir,
hello to all
thank
my
you very
friends
much.
in Bangladesh.
Okay, sir. Good night, sir. Good night.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.